I want other people to be able to be in control of the income they make, the amount
Mhm.
of income they make, the schedule they keep. And just because we're PTs, we're not bound down by, we don't have to be down by insurance
Mhm.
or our previous thoughts of what PT should be. Like, it's whatever the patient needs. And you don't need a ton of patients. Like, you just need.
Hey there, everyone. Thanks for joining me for another episode of the Female Empowered Podcast. I am your host, Krista Gurka. Today, I have a guest episode. I love them. And I love featuring female boutique health and wellness business owners that are doing really some amazing things. So today I have Dr. Megan Greco here, and she is the founder of MGPT, which is basically Megan Greco Physical Therapy, correct?
That's
And
right.
she's also the PT home biz mentor because she has done something that a lot of us probably, or I don't know, maybe some people did, but I know a lot of people at some point probably have thought about it and thought it's not a viable option. So she runs a very successful physical therapy practice out of her home. So I'm really excited to talk with her and see how she made that happen because it is, and it's more than just herself, which is unique because some people that do it, it's usually just them, but she's actually grown a full on practice. And I think your clinic, I'm doing air quotes, like looks better than 90% of the PT clinics out there that are in commercial real estate spaces. So you did an amazing job. So welcome to the show. And why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about you, like when you became a PT, where you're from, and how you got started with this business.
Awesome. Thank you, Krista. And I am so excited to be on. And I'm especially excited to be a client of your inner circle because since July, I've definitely grown quite a bit in my systems and processes. So I'm
Isn't it
super thankful
crazy
for that.
how fast 6 months went?
It's crazy. I know. It's crazy. I remember having the first conversation with you, and then I was like, I mean, but you know what I will say? And it's funny, I just made a soundbite about this. I've had coaches before, and I haven't always followed through with what they've said to do. And I was like, what's wrong with me? Like, why won't I just do it? Right. And then while I was driving, like when you have good thoughts when you're driving,
Yeah.
when I was driving the other day, I was on like a 3 hour car ride. I was like, oh, I trust her.
Oh.
I do. Like, I really do. And I actually was like beating myself up all this like couple years to be like, why won't I just move faster? What's wrong with me? Just do it? And then I was like, oh, I didn't trust completely the person that was telling me, what to do. And I truly trust you. So I'm like, when you do it, I'm just like, I just go like, just do these things. You say that, and I'm like, okay, I'll do it. It's
Oh.
really something.
That makes
Yeah.
my day so
Yeah, but
much.
it's
Thank
true.
you.
It's
Thank
absolutely
you.
true because I was like trying to think about what I would coach other people to say or coach other people to do when you're not doing what your coach tells you to do. It's not always just about you,
For
it
sure.
might be just a relationship. Like it's just not the right fit.
It could even be that with us with our patients, right? Like, why are
Oh,
our patients
absolutely.
not following through on what we're doing? Like, maybe they don't trust us. Maybe they
Yeah.
don't have a trust in the process or a way. And we as practitioners, there's definitely people that are just not doing the work, right? There's like
Yes.
those people. But then there's other people that you're just like, I don't get it. Like, why are we not moving forward? And you're right. We as practitioners need to figure out a way. How can we meet this person where they're at? Or how can we understand what they really need to move forward? And ultimately, sometimes it's not a great fit, even if whether you're talking about coaching or physicians, or I mean, it took me a little while to find my mental health therapist that like I really meshed with, right? Some of that's
Yeah.
probably on me too. And some of that's just a little bit in personalities, right? Like, and it's
100%.
okay. It's okay. That's
Yeah.
why I say to people, there's what I teach, and I mean, what I teach is not proprietary information. Like the marketing strategies are things that have worked for me, but they're also marketing strategies that 1,000 other coaches could teach. It's just like a different, I think it's the delivery, right? The delivery
100%.
experience. People find common ground. So if I don't mesh with some people, I'm like, hey, I think you might be better served with XYZ person, right? So, but that just makes
100%.
my day. Thank you. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for that. I really appreciate it. And I cannot wait for the next 6 months and what we can do with PT Home Biz
me too.
Mentor. Yeah, because it's
Me too. I'm psyched.
you have put together an amazing program. Amazing.
Thanks.
And when you sent it to me to look at, which I always want to see it from the customer side, I was ready to give a bunch of feedback and I was like, just in awe. I was like, this is amazing. Why are you not selling it every single day? Like, we need to get this in front of more people. It's an amazing course. It really, and I can see through because I've taken a gazillion courses. I can see
Yeah,
through the like, like, okay, but are they really learning anything? Like, is this kind of just glitter on top of like a cardboard box kind of thing? And it's not. Your program is amazing. So
thank you.
I'm really excited to dive into that. But first, tell us like what even made you even because how many years have you been doing this now?
Well, so I started as a PT like 20, what is it now? Oh my God, I'm so old now. 23 years ago.
I know we're about the same.
And yeah. And then I'm going on my 13th year in my home.
Which is, again, if you think back about 13 years ago, like not a lot of people were doing this, right? So what happened then
Yeah.
that you were like, okay, I think I can do this, and what made you want to make that transition?
Yeah. Honestly, life events really probably made me want to do that, right? So when I was younger, my dad had cancer. So it was like when I was 8 and he lived till I was 27. But he owned his own insurance business and he like had his business at the beginning of our neighborhood. So he was like always around. Like he was like the president of my PTA and like right. And I think that just really left a mark on me that I wanted to be able to be in or around my kids all the time. And as a mom, that's really hard. Like I don't know, like I really just wanted to be in the everyday and I wanted to be in I wanted to volunteer in the classroom and I just wanted to be in the day to day. And I guess but I also really loved being a PT.
Mm-hmm.
But but I would pick my kids over PT any day. I just really would.
And how
Sorry,
many kids do you have?
I have two. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, but I loved it. So I was like, how could I figure out a way to do both, right? And I always kind of really like an active life. So I'm like I have several things juggling all the time, even before I did this. But so yeah, when I was working in the clinic, I was a director of my clinic and I started to back up my hours when I had my kids because I was like, I want to be with them. And I started working at 6 p.m. so that I
That's
could spend
crazy.
it's super crazy. But like I loved my patients so much. And I was like, would you come later? And they're like, yeah, like just tell me when to come and I'll be here. So I was like, really? And so I started working just a couple days a week. I was the director, so I would like pop in and out. It was basically like I was testing it under somebody else's,
Right.
company. And so I would like pop in and out, and they were still thrilled because I was still managing it. But then I would physically work at 6 o'clock a couple days a week, and I would work until 12 midnight. It
No
was
way.
crazy. Yeah. And this actually was under when physiotherapy associates was a thing, right? But I would see a ton of patients in that time. There was no admin. It was just me. And my regional director was like, yeah, do whatever you want to do. Like he just trusted me. It was great. So when I realized that people would just come, I was like, and at that time, my dad had just passed away, right? And I started seeing a therapist for the first time. And I was paying cash to this therapist and I was paying like $120 to her every week. And I
Mhm.
was like, if I would pay her because I value it so much, why wouldn't somebody pay me? You know? And because there were no cash practices around me. And so we had moved into a kind of a rancher and the bottom was unfinished. And with the idea, like maybe we would do this, like just in like very, far recesses of my brain. And my husband was always like, yeah, like whatever you want to do. And when we looked at, my husband's an orthopedic PA, and where we live is very expensive. And like it's just not feasible to be a PT in my area and raise your kids during the day. Like if you wanted to like, just his job plus my job, I was like, I'm making this work because
Yeah.
I want to be home. And so we built out the basement and my patients were like, yeah, I'll come see you. I was like, okay. And that first day that I opened, I had a full schedule. And my full schedule was like 6 people, you know? But when I
Amazing.
first started, it was like $130 a patient. And so already in day one, I was like, this is crazy. Now
Right.
I'm going to work 2 days. That's it. And I'm going to get a babysitter. My sister helped me in the beginning parts. And then I would get a babysitter during nap time. So I'd only really miss 3 hours with the kids.
It's
And I was
amazing.
making so much more money in maybe 10 to 12 hours a week of work.
And
It
how
was
old were
insane.
your kids when you started this?
So when I started, they were 4 and 2.
Okay. 4 and 2. That's
Uh,
funny. That's
mhm.
exactly how old my kids were when I started my business.
Oh, is
Yeah.
that right?
It's
Yeah,
crazy. Yeah.
yeah. And if I had done it again, I would have opened my practice before they were born, right? I just didn't realize. And then I would have hired an employee. So if somebody's listening to this, hire an employee, even though it seems weird, somebody in your
Hmm.
home. It's not. But while you're on maternity leave, somebody else can see your patients. You don't lose that income.
Yeah.
So that's the
Yes.
one thing I would change.
Yes. And there
Yeah.
are a few people, I don't think in the inner circle, but in FitBiz foundations now that are the business owners that are going on maternity leave soon. And like what
Hmm.
we help them with in a lot of the program is getting a staff member on board so that they can be off, right? However long, whatever they want their maternity, leave to be. Some people want 2 weeks, some people want 6 months. They should be able to make that decision on their own, not because of like work requirements. So that's great. Um, I mean, it is so fascinating to me how you're able to do this. Okay. So, how long do you think you thought about it before you made the jump?
Well, like you remember like when you first started doing PT, and then everywhere you went, even now, when somebody finds out you're a PT, you give advice right then and there, right?
Yeah.
And then like maybe not now that we've been so now we know to say, oh yeah, come see me
Yeah.
instead of like doing it right. But I know like the first 10 years, we were like on the sidelines of fields being like, let me just see your shoulder. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly. Yeah.
And especially when you're starting a business, you give so much away for free. You know what I mean? But I think that was the attitude I had because everywhere I went, I'd be like, get on the couch, let me just see you. You know what I mean? And I was like, go here. You didn't have to be in your treatment area to be treating, you
That's
know?
true.
So I think it was always in the back of my mind, like, if I can do it here, why can't I do it just on my own? Um, yeah, I really didn't have too much fear. I don't love authority already. Like, I don't like people telling me what to do. I mean, it's not a horrible thing. It's just,
No,
I'm
it's
always like,
also,
but I'm always like,
I
but
think
why can't we do it?
I think it's our generation too. Like most of
Yeah.
us, like maybe didn't play well in the sandbox with others. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I take that on myself as well.
Yeah. It's like I'd rather ask for forgiveness rather than
Then
permission.
permission.
Yes.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes. So
And so
then
I was just like, let's just try it.
what made you decide in your home versus like renting a place out and just going 2 days a week? Was it because you just wanted to be with your kids? Like what was because was there ever a thought of, well, maybe I'll just like rent a space so it's still my own and I'll go 2 days a week or I'll collaborate with somebody. So what was it that made you think like I could do this in my house?
I think that if I think if I went into a commercial space immediately, I was like, I don't want something huge right now.
Right.
I really want my focus to be on my family, right? And probably within my home, I could contain it. But if I went commercial, I probably would have gone big
Right.
and I wouldn't have been able to like have boundaries on myself out there.
Yeah.
And then it
And
would
there's
have
more
been,
overhead too. There's more
yeah.
overhead. Yeah.
But you know what's interesting? I didn't even take the overhead thing into consideration when I was doing it. I
Oh
was just
no.
more like, yeah, first. It was like, and then like after a year, I was like, oh, and I made all this money and I have no overhead. You know what I mean? It was just, but I really think I was just trying to do PT, make it manageable, but at the end of the day, be able to raise my kids.
Yeah. So tell us like what your day. Okay. So let me backtrack a little bit. When you first started in your home, it was just you, correct?
Mhm.
Okay. So take us from just you to then hiring. Like, what was that process like? Because most people do, like, if they do have it in their home, it is just them. And that's kind of how it
Mhm.
goes. So you've actually taken it and even taken it a step further. So, what was that process like?
I started 2 days a week in my home when I first started, and I was fairly busy right away, probably seeing 10 or 12 patients a week, which doesn't sound like. I mean, that used to be like less than what I used to do in a day at my old clinic, you know. But so it'd be 10 or 12 hours a week, and then um, interestingly enough, I treated the contractor of my business who or of my basement. So like they were building it out and he was like limping one day and I was like, David, what's wrong with your knee? You know? And he's like, yeah, I'm running this marathon. I was like, oh, cool. I've got a foam roller from upstairs. I'm like, go get on this. Let's do this. Work these exercises. We're in the unfinished part of my basement. And he's like, all right, I want to become a client. I was like, okay, right. When it's all done, become a client. Well, his daughter was a national champion Irish dancer. Now I am not an Irish dancer, right? And I was a basketball player in college and didn't even know anything about dancing. And I got into this dance school, this Irish dance school in my community, and all these Irish dancers. Teelan Irish Dance. It's an amazing place around here. I started treating all of these Irish dancers and
Wow.
all of their families, and I still do to this day. So that was like that was really something that kind of catapulted me into this other world. Um, and then I started treating people at night, like one night a week I would work. And I was like, okay, this is okay. Now I really was just trying to contain it to the daytime, but I really enjoyed working with these families. So I'm like, okay, I will do 2 days and I will do one night, right? Then
So that
I
was,
started,
let me ask you this, because this is always a question I have, or people ask me. Did you
yeah,
do nighttime because you needed, like, that's the times that people needed and you wanted to make space for them to come in? Or were you like, I could do another time, but it can only be at night, and they agreed to come in? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, which one
yeah,
was it?
yeah. I think especially, so these other people that I was seeing, they would just come during the day, but these students needed to come in the
Got it.
afternoon and evening.
Got it.
And that was the only night they had off from dance. So
Okay.
I was like, okay, I'll do Wednesday nights, you
Okay.
know?
So you saw the
Um,
need, and then that's when you opened up, but it still
yes,
worked for you.
it did. Cause then my husband was home.
Right.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. And so then I expanded from that. And then, so I did several years like that. And then, um, I started treating I treat a lot of PTs, ironically. And one PT I was treating became an employee of mine.
Awesome.
And yeah, so it really picked up though COVID. When COVID hit, I was doing about 30 to 40 hours a week. Or yeah, 30
Pri-
20 sorry, 30
prior,
to 40 patients a week. That like 2019.
oh, so prior to COVID. So
Yes.
you had gotten all the way up and you were treating all of them?
Yes, because now my kids have like once they get to kindergarten, you're like, okay, I can open up. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Because
Yeah.
they're more occupied because they're in school. So
Yeah.
you're fine having your schedule full through the day, right?
You got it.
So what did you do? You got up in the morning, you take them to school. What did
Yep.
that, like, what did your day look like?
Yeah, I would take them to school and then I'd be back at my house at like 8:30 or 9 and then people would just start coming. And then yeah, I really did see people all the way up until I would leave to go pick them back up again. It was a very full day, you know.
Yeah.
And I was definitely maxing out on both sides of my life, family
Yeah.
and work. But it was successful.
Yeah.
It was great, you know?
And I would see, and I've seen you post about this a little bit too. If there's a snow day, like at the time we're recording this, there's been lots of snow days. Now your kids are older, but as a snow day, if they're home, you could still go downstairs to work if you so chose to do that, right?
100%. Like
Yeah.
um, when they were younger, I would just call off the day. I'd be
Yeah.
like, okay, we gotta schedule. Like the people that see me know that my family is my first priority. I mean, and they are like a 1A priority, you know, so
Hmm.
it's not like, oh, well, you're not important to me. They know how my
Of
patients know how
course.
important they are. But I'm doing this to be for my family. So if there was a snow day and it was like, you can't really get there, I would probably choose the one that actually had to come in, one or two people. And I'm like, come in. But the rest of the day, I would say, come in tomorrow, you know,
Makes
and just be
sense.
have full
Great.
flexibility. Yeah.
And then as I got older and they're self-sufficient, they could watch TV or they're doing homework or they're talking on the phone or whatever, then you're like, oh, okay, I could just go downstairs, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
even last week, you were saying I got to take the day off and go sledding with my
Totally.
kids, which is
Yeah.
like great.
Yeah, we had like 7 inches here, and a lot of the patients had been like, "Can I reschedule?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's fine." And they were scheduled for like 3 days from then, and I went sledding with my kids.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah, it
awesome.
was great.
So
Yeah.
when you brought on this other person who
Mhm.
was a patient of yours, right?
Yeah.
What made that decision happen?
So I think she was talking about she was working about 45 minutes away. And I was already I was maxing out like my hours, and I was sending a lot of my patients away that wanted to see, not my patients, but new patients who wanted to
Mhm.
be seen in the evenings. And I was like, I'm not doing evenings anymore. It was probably a couple hours or a couple, sorry, years that I was like, I'm not treating patients in the evening anymore. Um, and she has kids that are grown. And so she's like, I would love to work afternoon and evenings.
Ah,
So I was like, well, that's perfect. And she also loves to work with dancers. And I was like, this is a perfect fit. And she's an amazing physical therapist. So that was like a no-brainer. So we started to transition her in. And it was definitely new to me because I hadn't managed people in a while, you know, and she came from an insurance-based system. So there was
mhm.
just a lot of growth happening there. And then with when COVID came, it was definitely, I got so nervous actually when COVID happened. I had never been nervous about my business at all. Like for some reason, I just have never been nervous. I always feel like there's always more than enough patients to be
Mhm.
seen. And so, but when those first 2 weeks when they were like, you can't see anybody, I was like, what? Like, how would I make money? You know what I mean? Like, how can I like, what other skill set do I have? You know? And then, of course, again, with the whole like, I'm going to ask for forgiveness rather than
Forgiveness.
permission, I just moved my table outside.
Yeah.
And my patients were like, I still want to come. I was like, okay. And we were super busy, super duper busy over COVID. Um, and so we just continued to grow. And then another PT I was seeing wanted to come on board. So then I brought on another PT, and we grew a lot during COVID.
Yeah. Well, I would
Yeah.
imagine, tell everyone what part of town, what part of the country you're in.
We're in Maryland.
Okay. So I would just imagine though that during COVID, people would rather go to someplace, even if you did it inside, even if you
Hmm.
were still inside, you're going, there's you guys. It's not like a building where people are coming in and out and there's lots of hands touching everything and you can control the environment much more. And I mean, listen, we started COVID in March, so then you're in the summer, so you're kind of like out of winter and you could do stuff outside, which is amazing.
Hmm.
So I bet you it was a benefit of people to be like, I'll still go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and so tell me now, so like fast forward 2023, okay, oh,
Hmm.
2024. Um,
Hmm.
how many patient facing like client hours are you working right now on your personal schedule?
Yeah. So I'm back to where I started, about 10 to 12 hours a week. Hmm.
Perfect. And then
Yeah.
your other two therapists, how many patients are they seeing a week or visits are they seeing a week?
They're seeing between 8 and 15, 16 a week each.
Okay. So even if you take like 12 each, so they're seeing 24 and you're seeing 12. So you're up to like 36, 40 hours of client care a week,
Hmm.
right? Are you comfortable telling everyone what the revenue you generated in 2023 was? Because I just think people might not think that this is possible in a home-based business. So are you comfortable with that?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
So 260 grand.
I mean, over a quarter of $1 million
Hmm.
outside of your home,
Yeah.
right?
And that's with there's been some circumstances within like our PTs, like we've had some family losses that where the numbers went down for a couple of weeks, but I intend to get to that to $420,000 this year
Yeah.
when it's at capacity, and that's still with part-time hours
Yeah. Yeah.
for all the PTs.
When you look at, and things that we've talked about is looking at your pricing and looking at packaging and discussing wellness plans and, post rehab, whatever you want to call it, post discharge, all of that kind of stuff, working on conversions. So I just want people to hear like $500,000 outside of your home. So there are some times where people will say to me, they'll always say to me, like, oh, I want to get to seven figures. I want to get to seven figures. I want to get to, and I question people, why do you want to get to seven figures? Right? Because
Hmm.
seven figures, it's just like this imaginary ceiling or benchmark or finish line. But sometimes $1 million, like revenue at $1 million, does in and of itself doesn't mean anything. It's like looking at an MRI without any other context, right? It's like looking at someone's back MRI without any other context, right? Like what are we looking at? How old are you? What do you sit? What's your position? Like you're lying down, that's not moving, because you can have $1 million business and spend a million two thousand, like, 1 2, like then you're not profitable. So I will tell people, I'm like, I know people that have way better profitability and take home more with a $300,000 business out of their home than people that have a 1 million brick and mortar. Right.
Right.
So I think it's an option, a viable option for people. So I'm sure the next question I'm sure that you get a lot is, I don't know if I would like people coming into my home, right? I'm sure
Hmm.
that's like something you get asked a lot. So I think your setup is amazing. So how do you handle that? And then how do you recommend other people handle that?
Well, I think first of all, like the way that I market is very different than you market a traditional clinic, like in our commercial space, right? Mine is word of mouth only, really.
Mhm.
And I keep a full schedule, just word of mouth for almost 13 years now, right?
Amazing.
So you have to build relationships. And so the number one thing is obviously safety for you as
Mhm.
you're the practitioner in your home, but then also your family. Now these people are in your home, right? But in 13 years, knock on wood, I haven't had one patient that I have been concerned about. And that is because they come from a network of people that I already
You already
know.
know.
So the first question is, okay, how did you find me and who do you
Mhm.
know? And that, based off that, then I go, okay. So like physicians have asked me, can I keep your cards at my, I'm like, no. Like
Yeah,
I have physicians call me and I'll say, yeah, okay, I'll see them. Like, are they like, what are they like? You know what I mean? And I hate to say that, but it's a very big concern, you know?
absolutely.
Yeah. So, but again, in 13 years, not one issue.
That's great. And
Yeah.
so tell everyone, because I know what your place looks like now, but
Yeah.
people are not actually walking through your home, right?
No.
So tell me how they get in, how you feel like, do you feel like your clinic is separate from your home, or do you, like, when you go into that space, is it feeling like you're going into a different space, or to you, or are you just going into a different room of your house? I'm just curious what you actually feel.
Yeah. That's a good question. I definitely feel like I'm entering my business when I'm
Okay.
coming downstairs. And it's only like during the hours of business because I can walk down there and there's another big space behind a door that's like a family room. That's like, that my kids are down in there with their friends. And like on the weekends, But when I go down there, it's definitely like it's business. It's business time. I I wanted to set it up where I have just everything down because I want people to feel that they're in a space of it's professional.
Yeah.
I don't want them to feel like I mean I love them all. They can come to my home. But I want them to know, and it's always been a big thing of mine even when I was at other clinics, like I don't want the patient to feel my baggage when
Right.
they
No, I
come
know what
in
you mean.
and be
You
treated.
want to
Yeah,
you want to create a space. It's for them, right?
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
you want to create a space again, professional. And
Hmm.
do you think you had any mindset stuff around like they're not going to think that I'm a professional because I'm running something like out of my garage?
Oh, yes,
You did.
100%. Like
Okay.
I think oftentimes like for the first probably several years, probably up until COVID, honestly, if I'm gonna be completely honest, I just need to think about this. So 2011 to when did COVID happen? 2020. And it's always going to be before COVID and after COVID when we like
Right.
reference something. But probably for 9 years, I was like, this is not legitimate. It's in my basement, right? But it was because I wasn't really looking at my numbers all the time as a business, right? So like what you were just talking about, like profitability, like I have so much profit that my overhead is so low that it's mostly profit.
Mhm.
Mostly what I'm spending money on is obviously, material, office supplies, materials, exercise equipment, but also coaching, right?
Yeah.
So like that's where a lot of like it's investing back into me and my business, but the profit is so high. So I was not looking at the business piece of it. And that is what probably, contributed to me not feeling like it was a true business because I was not looking at the business piece
Yeah.
of it.
That
I was
makes
really
sense.
just focusing on the patient in front of me, making sure they were getting better, and then running back upstairs to be mom,
Yeah. Do
you know?
you were you guys ever like do your schedules overlap with the other PTs or are you all there separately?
So I have a space now. So when I first started my practice, I was in this one home, and then I'm in the middle of 2018. I moved to another home. So now downstairs is about 1,500 square feet down there.
And it's really
Um,
amazing. I'm telling you,
Thanks.
this place looks like first of all, we're going to drop all of her links, but you guys should go to her Instagram page because she has like a thing on there where she was showing people like her setup or something like that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it looks amazing. So
Thanks.
check it out.
Thank
So
you.
now you have a bigger space. So now you have space that you guys can be there at the same time.
Yeah. So like there's a back space and then there's a front space. And I actually just put up some like curtains and so that there's still like I still enjoy like that my patients have privacy. I think that's important for my clientele that I treat. And then but that there's like a communal space too.
Got it. And
Yeah,
so, and clients come in to that space directly. So they don't have to
they
walk
do.
through your house. There's a
Yeah,
separate
they do.
entrance. Okay.
And the
So,
reason and the reason I'm just gonna finish this because the reason that I did that is not because so I actually go to an acupuncturist. It's through her front door, right?
oh,
And I'm like, this is great. Like I don't think anything of it. The reason I did it was because I knew that I couldn't keep my house perfectly clean like I'd want it to be because I had such little kids. And
yep.
I didn't want, again, I didn't
I hear
want
you.
my baggage on people. So that was the only reason I was like, I got to have a separate. If you're super organized, like it is fine. Like patients
I
don't care. They just want to be treated by you,
They don't care. They don't care. But I too, I think, and I don't know, maybe it's because again, we're like almost the same age. We graduated at the same
Yeah.
time. Like I would not want people to walk through my front door.
No, me
Like
neither.
for who knows why. My house, and by the way, my house is always clean, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So in during COVID, the last house we lived in had the people that lived there before us had built out a garage. They're built out their garage really nice. Like it had a refrigerator in there and it was big. It was probably 400 square feet, 400 square feet. It was like pretty big. And so, and it had a garage door entrance right in the driveway. So
Hmm.
during COVID, I put a table in there and a reformer and some Pilates equipment, and I would have people, because we were trying to not have all of us in the studio at the same time also. So I was like, I have the
Right.
capacity that I could work at home. And it was that experience that was like, it was really the one time during COVID that I was like, if this shit goes to hell and
Totally.
like we're fucked,
Uh-huh.
this could be it for me. Like it could be.
Absolutely.
And it
Right.
had a bathroom. You did have to go into my house to go to the bathroom, but it was like you just had to open the garage door to my house and the bathroom was right there.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, if people have to go to the bathroom, and not everybody does when they're
Hmm.
there, but they could wash their hands or whatever. So I could come in, close the door, and be in the garage. And I used to put a sign up because, of course, all my kids were home. And I put a sign up and I was like, mom's in session. Like, don't come
Totally.
in the garage. But there
Yeah.
was no need for them to go in the garage,
Right.
and clients could come in and out that way. So
Hmm.
I think I'm like you. Like, I don't know a client that maybe is a friend of mine, I wouldn't have a problem with.
Hmm.
So how did you feel? So, like, one of the things, I work a lot from home, but doing calls like this. And so keeping my kids quiet is an issue. So how did you feel about that as your, I mean, speaking of, like, my one son's now staring at me in the side. So, how did you feel about like your kids and noise, if when they were little, or even if it was after school and they were home? How'd you handle that?
Yeah, I probably was, well, first of all, when I was like, building the business, I the contractors actually were like, "Hey, we can put this stuff in the ceiling. This is not necessary, by the way. This is just if you are, building it out right now. It's like for people who like play drums, like some soundproofing. Okay.
Mhm.
So I spent some good money like doing that, which made me feel good. But here's the thing. I lived in a rancher and what I didn't realize was that you can hear everything through the vent. So I paid so
Uh,
much money to put all this stuff in the drywall in the ceiling.
and then you could hear it anyways
And then here are my little kids, like me and Macy were like, "Mom, hi!" Like
through the
through
vent.
the
Oh
vent.
my
Yeah.
God.
And I think the first couple times it happened, and it only happened like because it'd be like my husband was home making dinner, and then they were going to bed, and they did it. They were like, "Mommy, good night," like through the vent, and I was like, "Oh God!" But my patients were like, "Oh, that's so cute. I remember when," and
I
they just
know.
did it a couple times. You know what I mean? So then, of course, through the years, I'm like, "Good night, guys," or they would run in and give me a kiss and then leave.
That's so cute. Yeah.
If they're, but I would never leave them alone. To be like, because I really just wanted to be able to focus on my patients. So I would have a babysitter in for a couple
Makes sense.
hours.
Yeah.
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 If I felt like they needed me or they would be disruptive, they would have a babysitter, or my husband would be home, or my sister would take them for a couple
Yeah.
hours. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. So your goal is to do $400,000 this year in revenue, which
Yeah.
totally doable.
Hmm.
And the other benefits, you did talk a lot about the profitability of your company and what that's able to do. The other benefit is you have the benefit that you can also pay your employees really, really well. So
I do.
now not only do you get the autonomy and agency to be in your home, to have
Hmm.
a flexible schedule. And this is what I tell people, we're only limited by our own mindset. And sometimes that mindset is, oh, I can't cancel patients. Like, what are they going to think of me? But if you build your
Hmm.
business around, hey, listen, I'll be available to you. We can be flexible. We can do whatever. But like, there might be a day that I'm going to cancel because of my kids. You
Right.
can build an entire business. Just lean into that and be like, this is what you get when you come here. You get to be, there's benefits on both sides, right? So
Yeah.
you also get to have the opportunity to have other people now have a really good life, have a great job that they love, help clients. So there's a great benefit to that too. So I'd love to talk now about PT Home Biz Mentor, because
Hmm.
there are so many people, I think, that are in the position that you're in. And by the way, maybe some dads are in this position too, where way more dads now are taking on primary parent roles, or maybe they want to do the same. Maybe they do want to be home with their kids. And this is an opportunity that they can do that and build something in their home. So tell us a little bit, well, tell us a little bit about why you decided to start PT Home Biz Mentor, which is basically helping other people figure out how to start a business out of their home. So what made you decide you wanted to do that? And then we'll get into the program a little bit.
Well, it definitely goes back to that COVID time when I had to make decisions. Like I remember being on telehealth with a patient that just had Achilles rupture repair, and that
Wow.
the hospital had, I think they just did the repair, and then like, I mean, this isn't what happened, but it definitely felt like this to him. That they were like, they just kicked him out and like bye, like, and there was no follow up with the orthopedic, like everything was just in such disarray, you know. And he lived about just a couple miles away from me. And I was like, oh, I'll see you on telehealth. Cause it was like that first week, you know,
Yeah.
that first week that we were like, I don't know what's happening. And I was seeing him and I was like, if I could just like touch you through the computer, like that's what I need to do. It's really what needs to happen. And then finally I was like, can you just come over? Do you feel comfortable coming over? You know, like we'll wear a mask. We wore gloves at the time. Like it was so silly, you know? And I was like, well, we just didn't know. So then he was like, yeah, I will totally come over. And just the ability to do what I needed to do for the patient while my colleagues who own practices here were shut down for 2 or 3 months, right? And even my own husband actually lost his job because
Oh,
he does orthopedic surgery, and they canceled elective surgeries. And so, like, there was just no control, like, in your livelihood. And so, and like,
which is
also,
super
again,
scary, which is
it's
super
super
scary.
scary.
Yeah,
And also, like, when you're like, okay, this, especially with, I know COVID's a hot topic, but I feel pretty strongly about it that when you know that there's a certain population that's not in danger, but we can still like treat them and, you know, like it just all didn't need to stop at that moment. You know, maybe in those couple weeks, yeah, right. But then later, once you realize, okay, this is not everything needs to stop here, right? The ability that I was able to just continue on and help people who really needed help because there's a lot of people who lost fitness during that time. You know, it was like,
totally.
yeah, and still now to this day. So I was just like, this is great. Like that I can still move. Like I put up tarps.
Hmm.
I had like heat lamps. You know, it was like, I was like, whatever it takes, I will do. Actually, I gotta tell you a funny story. I was treating somebody out back and it was underneath a deck. And I'm super fortunate that I had a setup like this to be able to do that. But in the back of the house, it looked beautiful, right? It was a summer day. It looked beautiful. What I did not realize there was a storm developing in the front of the house, right? And I'm treating my patient. She's on the table and she's in a mask. I'm in a mask. Like, you know, you're still trying to be careful, but like you don't know what you're being careful of.
Yeah,
But you're still
like
you're trying to like dot all the I's and cross all the T's. So so there was like a crack of thunder, like boom, boom, you know, like lightning, like it was crazy. And it was probably like 4 or 5 at night. I jumped on my patient to
no,
like,
you did.
I was like, wow, like I know what I'll do for you. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
but we had no idea where that sound came. It was just the
Oh my
funniest thing.
gosh.
But I
Oh
was
my
just,
gosh.
yeah, but that was really funny. But I don't know why I tangented there. But that really at the end of that, I was like, I want other people to be able to be in control of the income they make, the amount
Hmm.
of income they make, the schedule they keep. And just because we're PTs, we're not bound down by, we don't have to be bound down by insurance
Hmm.
or our previous thoughts of what PT should be. Like it's whatever the patient needs. And you don't need a ton of patients. Like you just need the patients who want to come to you. That's it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I think it's great. I mean, I think there's way more cash-based practices now than like when we started, you know.
Yeah.
So I started in 2008 and you probably started like 2010 around there. So not that far, 2011, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when I first started, there were no cash practices around. And I think I didn't even think that I was starting a cash practice. I was really just like doing Pilates. And then somebody would be
Mm-hmm.
like, well, and I'd be like, I was still working at the clinic, but I was saying like, oh, I'm here Tuesday and Thursday. I'm not at the clinic Tuesday, Thursday. And so people were like, well, can I come see you at the Pilates studio? And I was like, yeah, but we don't take insurance. Or like, I'll pay you cash. Like that's how it started. And even then
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't have a PT practice. I have a Pilates practice and someone's just, work around. And so
Huh,
when eventually I opened, I was like, okay, we could do PT here. And this is the price. And I think my price was like $90 when I first started. It was so, but the same thing, like when I see my attorney's bills or my accountant bills or my therapist, my mental health therapist, and I'm like, well, my therapist who I love, she just listens to me talk for an hour and then I pay her, I drop her cash every week, which I'm happy to do. I don't think twice about it,
totally.
so I was like, okay, this is what we're going to do moving forward. So, how, what do you think is more difficult for people? The transition from like going to a clinic to working in your house, or the transition from going insurance based to cash pay?
Insurance to cash.
Yeah, you think so?
It's it's a total mindset.
Yeah.
It's a total mindset. I was fortunate to have my sister, honestly, when I transitioned into my cash practice. Like my husband works in the insurance world, so he wasn't that person for me. But my sister definitely was. She worked in sales.
Mm-hmm.
She used to work for Pepsi, and she just the amount of money that she was working with was like, you know, it just doesn't even compare to healthcare, you
Yeah.
know? So she was my bookkeeper for the first couple of years. And when I was feeling nervous, right, about like, oh, I don't know, what do you think? And she'd be like, no, you're fine. This is great. You know, like she just was that person. You need somebody right here that's
Yeah.
gonna be like, you're fine, keep moving ahead. Don't worry about it. You're doing you're a good PT. This is what they need. No one's actually, and you know what's crazy? No one
Was
in
telling you
my
no.
13 years was telling me no.
I know. We were telling ourselves no.
100%.
Yeah.
It's always you. And
Yep.
even when I raise my prices, like most of my patients go, oh, it's about
Okay.
time.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my
They're like,
God.
okay. Yeah.
Okay. It's, it is. So the healthcare, I think school and then the healthcare system has set us up for, we don't, we don't deserve to be paid
Yeah.
for what we do when we are literally using our bodies and our minds to help people live their best lives. Like it's like
Yeah.
it's like a teacher, right? Like they're such an important profession and we're such an important profession, but we don't value ourselves enough.
For sure. And I
Yeah.
think the way that the industry is going, we hear it all the time, like new grads coming out, or even people that have been working 5 or 10 years, but they're working in an insurance-based practice and they're like, well, I deserve $150,000 a year. Well, listen, you deserve $150 million a year, but the problem is the business model doesn't afford that. Like, I don't care how much school you've had. I don't care. But if we're getting reimbursement at like $45 a patient, they can't pay you $75 a patient. Like, it just, the numbers don't work. So when
No.
people are online all the time just bitching about how PTs make little, I'm like, you entered into this world. Like, if you want it different, then you have to do something different, which means, now I'm not saying people can't have a successful insurance based practice. They can.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a PT and you're working for someone else, an insurance based practice, you have to create sometimes like either a different offering or talk to your owner or figure it out. But it's money. Like, it's just
Mm-hmm.
Apple, it's just metrics, right? Like, you can't
Right.
expect to lose 100 pounds when you're drinking 7 Pepsis and going to McDonald's every day. Like, it's just, it
Right.
will not happen. So if you are, and even in cash, so like even when people come to us and they're like, well, I really want to make 6 figures a year, I'm like, great, here's what you need to do to
Right.
get to 6 figures. It's
Right.
doable, and you have to see this many patients at this rate for this long. Like,
Right.
that's it. But the problem is a lot of people don't want to put in the work.
Right.
They don't want to put in the work. They don't want to ask for the money. So like PTs are like, oh, I don't know. I want to make $150,000, but I don't want to charge them $250.
Well,
Well, I'm
when
like,
when I was working at my other clinic as a director, I would have to, I would have to talk to my colleagues, right, about charging for what they do, right?
mm-hmm,
Like they
mm-hmm,
would not put the charges in, right? So that
yeah,
I'd be like, okay, well, you spend an hour and a half with this patient, like and you're charging three codes,
Codes.
right? Or three units, right? This is so funny. This is bringing me back like so long, right? And there was just a mindset there that they didn't even want to charge their insurance that, right? And I was like, yeah, but you don't understand. Like the root of that is then the insurance doesn't realize how much you actually do for the patient. So you're not helping anyone. And then you're definitely not going to get paid what you deserve because you're undercutting what, you know what I mean? It
Yeah,
was just,
no,
and
for
so like when
sure.
I saw that whole thing, I'm like, that's not going to change. Like if PTs don't charge for what they do, like even in an insurance based system, that will never change.
Right.
And then a patient walked in to me and I was like, I remember she had like an SI issue and it was not resolving. And I'm like, why isn't it resolving? She's like, I don't do my stuff at home, but I'm so excited that I get to, or I'm so happy that I get to or I get to pay $5 copay and be able to see you for an hour. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm trying to do everything physically and mentally for you. And you're paying $5 and that's why you're not doing anything. And when people pay, they pay attention,
Of
right?
course.
And so like that is not an issue when I
Yeah.
work now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
I know. I say I like when people pay, they pay attention, but I also say the transformations in the transaction. And
yeah,
so
I like that.
for everything, people have to have skin in the game and they value it
They
a
do.
little more,
They do.
and the other thing is, so when people say, yeah, that, like I charge now 250 for my PT sessions and Pilates sessions, like it's an hour of my time, right? So, um, and it took me a long money mindset to like work my way around, like, and I can say it now, yeah, it's 250,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm really good at what I do. And so
Mm-hmm.
I can, if I can help this person, right? Because I don't work with people that I don't think I can help, I will refer them to someone else, right? But I feel so confident in my skills, like I'm like, yeah, it's 250 a session and I can work on this person in one visit or two visits and have them be better, then maybe they can go to another therapist where they're spending $50 a copay, but they have to be seen 4, 5, 6, 8 times, right? So yes, it's expensive, but ultimately, I truly believe that I'm saving them money
Mm-hmm.
because I can get them better faster, right? And
And
so that's another
yeah.
mindset too.
Mm-hmm. And I also think that, yeah, absolutely with that. And also, people have a choice.
They
So
always have
like,
a choice.
so we're like not like we're not making them pay us,
No,
right? So like, that's what I always think about, like especially like with some of my employees that I moved from insurance based to cash. It's like they feel bad. I'm like, guys, they have a choice. You put it out there, you give them all the information, and if they say yes, you can relieve yourself
yeah,
of the burden of that. Like you're not managing their pocketbook, you know?
right. And there's different reasons why, like they're not saying no to you as a person or as a
Right.
therapist. They're just maybe saying no, like this isn't a viable option for them right now. And that's fine. And you're absolutely right. People totally have a choice. And I'll say to people sometimes, like, what's going through your, like, what's holding you back right now? And they're like, oh, 250 is expensive. And I'm like, it is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
It is expensive. So I would ask them, is it more important to you to get covered by insurance and maybe have the rate be lower, or is it more important to you to get results faster? And if their value is getting it covered by insurance, then I have a ton of people that I can refer them to.
Right.
If they're like, you know what, I'd love to get it covered, but it's really, I have an event that I have to, like a thing I'm playing in 2 weeks. I really need to get better faster. And I'm like, well, that I can pretty much guarantee you. I can't
Mm-hmm.
guarantee you what insurance will do. But I
Mm-hmm.
can guarantee you in 2 sessions, you're going to be in a very different place than you feel right now. And so the choice is, you're right, the choice is theirs,
Right.
right? So,
Mm-hmm.
what are some of the things that you teach people? So, if someone's considering this, right, like, oh, maybe I could do this out of my home, without giving too much away of your course, there's stuff that they need to see, like there's stuff that they need to figure out if it can work. Like what are some of the basic things that you can help them with if they sign up for your course?
I would say, first of all, number one, and I haven't said this before, number one, make sure your family's on board.
Oh, that is a
It
good one.
is,
Yeah.
right? Like, I was just thinking this because we did have some snow, and my family's out there shoveling with me. Actually, not even with me. They're shoveling, and I'm not shoveling. Like lately, like my husband's out there and the girls are out there, and Yeah, they're shoveling and they're like, all right, yeah, let's get ready for the patients, to come in. And it's also like they know like they're not screaming and yelling at each other, which helps, right? If there's patients downstairs, like well, I'm like, hey, Miss Mimi's working, like, or Miss
Yep.
Megan's working, like let's not scream over the sweater being borrowed without you knowing right now,
100%. Yeah.
so I just think that everyone needs to be on board. It's a collect. There's a reason why I'm having my business in my house, right? And it's to be more flexible in my schedule. Um, so everyone needs to be on board. And then number two, and you can actually get a link to this on my Instagram, PT Home Biz Mentor, is to find out if your home or your soon to be home, because we were looking for homes that might have the possibility of having a business in your home. You can see if your home is zoned for a business. So there's residential areas that will not allow a business, and then there's like combined residential and commercial. And things have changed since after COVID. I mean, so many people have their businesses in their homes now after COVID. Um, and then lots of HOAs like that previously would not allow you to have a business now are like, well, how many people are you going to have in your driveway?
Right.
Especially if you see, are you going to be increasing the traffic on your street? When you see a patient once an hour or you like stagger them, there's no real increase in traffic on your street. And I have like in this house, I'm like looking out, I have probably four spots in my driveway. So people come in and out all the time. And my neighbors are like, we don't care. Can we come over for pizza?
Yeah.
Like, sure. So, but that's the number one thing. I would definitely look at that video and it'll show you how to find out in your own county if your house is zoned for a business. I would start
Perfect.
there.
We'll
Yeah.
we'll link that in the show notes. And I definitely think getting your family on board is important.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
if you think about all the different businesses that have practices in their home, I mean, if you think back to when we grew up, like Dr. Huxtable had his
Yes.
practice in his home, right?
It's funny.
She
That
went to
is,
work and Dr. Huxtable
yes.
went downstairs.
I'll tell you, I actually made a funny Instagram probably a couple years ago, right? About that. That is before, like after my dad, like that whole thing when I was growing up, had cancer, and then Dr. Huxtable. I loved that he came up and had lunch with his
Lunch with his
family.
family.
Yes, and then went back down to like
Yelled
deliver
at
a
like
baby or like
Theo.
yeah,
Yeah. Yelled at Theo for something. I mean,
yeah.
regardless, poor, unfortunately, Bill Cosby
I
went in
know,
a
I
little
know,
sideways on that, but he was
I
a
know.
doctor. He was an
Totally.
OBGYN and he
Yes,
went downstairs to hold a practice. Like I
that is
know
brilliant.
dentists that have their practice out of their home,
Yeah,
psychologists, lots of psychologists now practice out of their home,
yeah.
chiropractors, Pilates studios have practices out of their home.
Mm-hmm.
And again, all of these things you're usually doing one-on-one care. So it's not like 20 people are coming into your house at the same time. So it's
Yes.
a great opportunity also because rent right now is really expensive,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want anyone to think like that it's not a business. It's not like you just doing a little bit of like that is a business and you
Mm-hmm.
can make $500,000 out of your
Mm-hmm.
basement or a room in your house or a a detached garage or a back cottage or like whatever it is. And so I highly encourage if any of you are considering doing it, one, go to Megan's website, pthomebizmentor.com, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We will link it in the show notes. She really has a freebie on her site, but she has, when I tell you, and it's an amazing course. And I have very high expectations of like myself and of others. That's another Generation X thing.
Yep.
Growing up in a perfectionist household. But when I looked at her course, I was like, this is amazing. So she not only tells you what kind of like zoning you have to have, where to go get zoning, what licenses you need to get, how to get those licenses, how to incorporate yourself. She talks about safety, about marketing, about mindset, about scheduling, about dealing with, I mean, literally, you could get her course and be up and running operational with a cash based practice in not 90 days. I mean, unless you have to do a build out. Like if you have to do a build out, probably
Yeah.
not. But I mean, it's an amazing, amazing amount of information. Plus, tell me again, you have a one tier of the program where they actually get like Facebook support and live coaching support. So tell us a little bit about that aspect to your program,
Yeah. So you can just do just the course and do a
like a
self study.
self-study.
Yeah, but I mean, and that's great if that's up your alley. That is not what I like. I like the support of a community. And so the next tier is a private Facebook community with like-minded individuals who are doing the same thing as you, and then also a weekly Zoom call with me, and then everyone that's taking the course with you. Um, I think that I think the community piece is key because we all get stuck in our heads
Mhm.
and we all just and honestly, like I lose time because I mean the reason I'm doing it is because I'm a mom, right? And I get sucked into other things. And so when I'm with a group and I have someone that's kind of guiding me, then I'm like, okay, my task is for the next time, like let me get this started. It takes a little bit of time for you to get your LLC, and that's really the only thing. Everything else is under your control.
Mhm.
So, and obviously the build out piece, but if you have all that, like you definitely can have a practice running. I mean, the next couple months, like by summertime, you would have a lucrative practice.
Right.
And
With
that's
no travel
essential. Like,
time,
yes,
no travel, no traffic, you
yeah,
know? Yeah.
yeah,
And you're absolutely right. Like, you don't have to, I mean, ideally, you could be like, oh, it would be better if it looked nicer, or it would be better if we had this. But Megan's really right. The majority of patients, most of you, if you do this, will start with patients that you know. Like, we'll
mm-hmm,
start with people that you know. Most of the time, they're not going to care. Okay. I
mm-hmm.
mean, unless you're walking into a hoarding space, like that might be a different
Yes,
situation. But
yeah,
for the most part, they don't care. They're happy to support you. They're really good. They'll go anywhere with you. Like
mm-hmm,
then you can maybe, once you have some revenue coming in, then you can decide, oh, I'd really love to like change the lighting in here. Like we changed the lighting because the way, like when people were lying down, I was like, this doesn't look great. Or you can say, oh, maybe we need more temperature control. Let me add some fans or let me, but you don't have to start with that. And by the way,
mm-hmm,
most of us as PTs, a table, our
mm-hmm,
hands,
mm-hmm.
couple TheraBand, maybe a
That's it.
foam roller, and like maybe a few dumbbells.
Yeah.
Maybe. Like that's it.
Here's the amazing thing is that when you start purchasing things for your business that also is in your home, you basically are buying it for your business, but you also can use it as,
Yeah.
for your home. And so, like the square footage that I have in my house, the things that I purchase, like my air conditioning, right? I
Mhm.
just had to buy that. A percentage of the air conditioning is covered by my business,
Of
you
course.
know,
Yeah,
or the
exactly.
landscaping outside is covered by my business. Like that also like I benefit from for just my
Yeah.
house. So a lot of these purchases you can just they're tax deductions. So
They're
that's a whole
write-offs.
big piece of it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm highly going to encourage you to follow Megan on Instagram. Her practice Instagram is MGPT,
Mm-hmm.
but then she also has a PT. Is it dot home
It is
biz? So PT
dot
dot home biz
dot
dot mentor.
mentor. You got
Okay.
it.
So we'll link all of those in the show notes, but follow, at least go follow her on Instagram. She also has some really funny memes on there. And I, every once in a while, I'm like, this was hilarious. I really love this. And she's just a breath of fresh air. And she's very jovial and like she would be a great person to learn from. And she's been making it work for 13 years. I tell people all the time, if you want to succeed at something, learn from the people that are doing what you want to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So check out her course, check out her website, maybe shoot her a DM. And any last minute thoughts, Megan?
I think that when people hear what I do, they're like, "Well, where's your practice?" I go, "It's actually in my home." They're like, "I would love to do that, but I just don't think I could." I mean, honestly, everyone says that, and I want everyone to know that if you want to do it, you absolutely can do it. Like there is nothing that's making like my business work that you couldn't do. I think if you want to do it, you should absolutely do it. And the best thing about doing it at your home, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I mean, it's not like you've paid a ton of
Yeah.
money for rent, right?
Yep.
But most times it comes down to your mindset and your beliefs about money that make it work, right? And once you challenge yourself, which is an amazing personal challenge anyway, that will help you in your life, your business will be like super successful. So I would
That's
love to help
great.
anyone that is even considering doing this. I would love to talk to you.
That is a great point. You really lower the risk and it's a lower barrier to entry. And who knows, maybe one day somebody will be like, you know what, it's grown so much, it's outgrown my home. I'm going to get a space. But
Mm-hmm.
even that, sometimes I think you mentioned it once, or like, I'm always
Mm-hmm.
like, let's really talk through that because I'm going to like, I might push
Yeah.
back on that a little bit, right? Because you just have such success where you're at right now. And it can be lucrative, right? Super
Mm-hmm.
profitable, not only with financially, but with your time as
Yeah.
well. And so, well, I thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all of your insight. And until next time, listeners, bye for now.